you can get things done really well if you supercharge your people. And that's the role of the leader, is don't loiter too long in the task or with the individual or with the team. Distribute yourself so that you are around and available, but not in the thick of it. So you invest in your people, you motivate your people, and you get the best results from people.
My name is Trevor Vanstone. I'm an action-centered leadership trainer and I run Perspective HR based in the West Country. We work right across England and Wales. Thank you for joining us for one of our video podcasts around this enormous and ever-expanding world of leadership. We're focusing today very much on action-centered leadership, which is of course based on the work of Professor John Adair. I'm very keen on this. I've trained this and delivered this for the last 15 years. And it's, in my experience, one of the few things in life that actually shows you what to do. It puts leadership into context. We talk about the 3 needs of a team at work that the leader has to satisfy. And these are achieve the task, make sure the team is functioning, and of course, get the best out of each individual. And we talk about the functions of leadership, setting the objective, having that clarity, planning, using your team in that process, briefing skills, talking to your people, controlling, supporting, motivating, evaluating as well. Is something working? Do we need to change it? Or at the end of a project, looking at it, good or bad, and saying, what can we learn from it? It's real life. It's live learning. And of course, the very crucial function of setting an example and the power of that. So action-centered leadership is tried and trusted. It's been used for many years. I'm joined again today by my good friend, Jim Hutton, who I know is well versed in action-centered leadership, has used it and has put it into action over the years. Jim, I'm going to hit you with yet another quite big question here.
You're good at that, Trev.
While you're here, in your experience, what's the biggest lesson you've learned from action-centered leadership that you're still using today?
Okay. Well, I'll talk it from the point of view of the leader, because that's really what we're trying to imbue in people, is how you lead to achieve a task, get the best from your individuals, and the collective capability of the team, which is what action-centered leadership is all about. In my experience, and I've got about 46 years of experience in the military, of leading people, I would say, as a leader, you have a responsibility to get things done, but bring your people with you. And to do that, the one thing you must not do, is loiter too long on the task or on the individual or on the team, because you've got to take that overall view.
Right.
You've got to, I think you've used in your classes, you talk about helicoptering.
Yes.
You can call it the balcony view. You've got to get yourself out of the stalls, up to the balcony, and just take a view on what's going on. And then dive back in there if necessary to direct, to guide, supervise, keep things on track, come back, check all is good. You spend too long in there, it tends to unravel. So I like to use an analogy, and it's called maintaining the pyramid. So if you imagine a pyramid, and you imagine that you have 3 people working for you to maintain the pyramid, and each of them are responsible for a different part of that pyramid. And you've got one person who is standing really close to the side of the pyramid, and as they look at it, all they can see is the big triangle. And their job is to maintain the triangle. And then you have one person above the pyramid looking down, and their job is to look down on that pyramid and maintain the shape of the saltire, which is the square with the diagonal crosses, because that's the view of a pyramid from the top. And then underneath, you have the person who's looking upwards and maintaining the square. There's a pyramid is a square base. And so each of them have their own responsibilities to maintain the square, the saltire, and the triangle. And in fact, there might be 3 other triangle maintainers as well, because you've got 4 sides to this particular pyramid. So they're all there and they're doing their role. Now, if you as the leader who's standing back, taking the overall view that what we need to do is keep the pyramid maintained, that's the task. And I now have individuals maintaining the sides, the top and the bottom. As a team, I need them to get to work together so that no part of the pyramid gets distended or shrunken or enlarged at the expense of another. So they go work together to maintain a pyramid. And you can imagine that if I see Joe, who's maintaining one of the triangles, is working really, really, really hard, and that triangle's growing. And I go in there and say, "Hey, Joe, great stuff. I just need you to, keep to the task here. The triangle's got to be this size, this shape. Focus your effort on that." And I'm spending time with him. Meanwhile, Julie's underneath, going, "I could make this square a rectangle. But, I could get more volume here. This would be great." And she's working hard at doing that. And so I rush down to sort Julie out. Meanwhile, Fred's over the top going, "This saltire, I can make this great big thing, that would be massive." And, suddenly this pyramid is going all over the place. And I don't know that because I'm spending my time with Joe and Fred and Julie and not seeing that the pyramid is getting out of shape. So I need to duck in, bit of guidance and direction, bit of supervision, and come back out. And that's the role of the leader, is don't loiter too long in the task or with the individual or with the team. Distribute yourself so that you are around and available, but not in the thick of it. Stay up to give yourself the perspective and the big view.
Jim, your example is fascinating, and like you say, it very much strikes the same chord as the helicopter view. Obviously, you have had this career in this very specialised form of work. People do, particularly what you did in the Royal Marines, amphibious warfare, which is, as anyone reads about these things, is one of the hardest things that people have ever tried to do, isn't it? The folks listening to this and the people in our the companies and the professions and the charities and the folks that we work with, do you think that there are any fundamental differences between the specialised world of the military on this approach and the sort of things people will be faced with at work?
Not really. Leadership's leadership. So, the currency of the military is lives. Preserving ours and taking the bad guys. That's the currency. In business, the currency is pounds or dollars. It's about making a profit. You're not in business just to have a nice time. You're there for a purpose, and the purpose is to turn a profit, either for yourself or for your shareholders, and to pay the people who work for you. That's what you're about. But it doesn't matter whether the currency is lives or money. The principles of leadership, the principles of getting the best out of your people to achieve remain the same. They absolutely do. Yeah. Which is why I think it's important to learn from each other. So you could be running a small business. Go read a book about military campaigning, about small team tactics. Read 18 Platoon. Read books about Second World War, the Korean War, and learn about leadership. And then apply that leadership into your role now. You can also read lots of leadership books by people who have made a fortune from leading well and creating fantastic products and building companies. And you can learn from them too. And I, as a military person, read those books to see what I can take into the military environment. But that cross-fertilization, we can learn from everyone
And
on that.
And it's a really interesting point you were saying in terms of having this overall view so that you don't just focus on one aspect of the role, which I think, as we said earlier, is one of the traps that people can fall into, because usually people are promoted because they're technically good at something.
Yes.
So they think, right, I will make a good impression as a leader if I make sure that I am still the busiest salesperson, I'm still the busiest engineer, I will stick at that task element that I'm good at. What sort of tips do you have for folks to, dare I say it, wean themselves off of that approach? How do you make that step to have the greater view of the three circles, the pyramid, the battlefield, the whole company, the strategy, whatever it is? How do you start that process, creating that mindset?
You will have heard many leaders talk about their companies, their ships, their battalions, their whatever, and talk about their people are a number one asset.
Yep.
Okay. Why is that? Why is people the number one asset and not the product the number one thing? Well, it's simple. There would be no product without the people. They're the core of it. So you invest in your people, you motivate your people, and you get the best results from the people. We have learnt to a cost in the military that the culture of getting the job done at all costs has a cost, and the cost is on your people. And you can, I don't know what the latest figure is of how much it costs to train an individual to be a rifleman or an airman or a sailor, but it's a lot of dosh. It's a lot of dosh. And if that person joins their ship or the battalion or their air wing, does one tour of duty and leaves because of a toxic work environment, because of poor leadership, because they were thrashed to get the job done and nobody cared about them, then you've kind of let the company down. And you've blown all that money that was invested because they've left.
Absolutely. And
that
exactly
makes
the same,
no sense whatsoever.
Of course. And exactly the same thing happens in business.
Yep.
Because the cost of recruitment, okay, they may not be going through 32 weeks training, but that cost of recruitment, getting someone in, they're not going to be up to speed at the beginning. There's a lot of time spent. There's an enormous cost around it in any line of work. To get that person in the first place. And for that person, for that, and okay, sometimes it doesn't work out, and we all know that, but there is an enormous cost involved.
Yeah. So I think what behind ACL is this desire to get the best from the individual as part of a team to get stuff done. So let me give you an example. In the Royal Australian Navy now, a commanding officer of a ship is judged. They're reported on a myriad of things. And it used to be about the mission. We gave that ship a mission. They fulfilled the mission. Tick, promotion, off you go. That is no longer the case. Getting the mission done is a criteria. Bringing your people back is a criteria. Keeping those people in the Navy is a criteria. So if you take the approach that I'm getting this mission done at all costs, and so I'm going to thrash my people to get the job done, and the result is that you come back to home port and everyone goes, well done, you got the job done, but half the crew resign. What was that a good outcome? No, you're judged now on the low levels of resignation, and and you're judged on retention, your ability to retain people, and you only retain people by treating them well. And so we know that good leaders can get the job done and keep the people motivated in doing it. And it goes back to a previous podcast when we talked about understanding the why. If people understand the why, they will put up with hardships and
Yep.
arduous conditions, if they understand the why, they'll get after it because they have pride in themselves, they have pride in the team, they have pride in the country, and they don't want to let people down. So they'll get on with it and do it. But you can't make that happen.
It's a fascinating point you make, and there is always an example that we use on the Action Centre leadership training when we talk about the fire brigade, for example. So they get a shout, they go off out, they're not sure exactly what they're going to be going to. And we always say to the team, well, okay, in terms of the 3 circles, or the class, in terms of the 3 circles, they're probably not going to stop and have a team meeting on the way. They're not going to do anyone's appraisal. They are going to be solely focused on the task. And I always say to people, what enables them to do that? And most folks know the answer to this, and they'll put their hand up and they'll say, obviously, they've got to focus on the task. It's dangerous, which I'm sure is obviously the same, with the military, but they can focus on the task because the rest of the time they are practicing drilling, training, and therefore the team and the individual circles are fully topped up. If you go back to that analogy of the 3 circles, and yes, we are judged on getting the task done generally, but the team and the individuals are the batteries that enable you to have the power to do it. And I think what you're saying is exactly the same, is that however great the crisis, and hopefully most people at work and people listening to this won't be put in danger as such. We can often have some difficult situations at work. You have to display courage. But if those batteries run down, we don't have that power. Fascinating. Jim, we'll wrap this one up. What is the one abiding lesson of Action Centre leadership? What is the one nugget that you've carried over this time?
I think it's that you can get things done really well if you supercharge your people by effective leadership. You really can. And I reflect back on my time, and I can't. You always cringe when someone comes and says, "Hey, you were the best boss I ever had," and you go, "Oh gosh, I don't know why he's saying that." But it happens, and you don't know why you were the best boss he's ever had, but you made an impression on that individual, and that's a super nice thing to have said to anyone. And if you just, I don't know why. I don't know why for that individual it was the best boss he'd ever had. But I put it down to that, we took on things. I took things on. We got them done. We enjoyed doing them. We kept ourselves motivated, even when it was dark times. We trained ourselves. We trained hard. And we always, we realized in the military that if you train hard, then you kind of fight easy. And combat is loads and loads and loads of hanging around, and then minutes of terrifying action. The rest of the time, you're just sitting around waiting. But how you perform in those minutes is determined by how well you have worked as a team in drilling, rehearsing, practicing, getting the basics right, all those things. And you can only do that if you are gelled and led well. So that's the role of the leader.
You've summed it up beautifully. Supercharge your people. I need to look up the Latin for that. We'll have some t-shirts done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Go back to your workplace, get yourself a mentor. Have a chat about what you've learned. Create a plan on how you're going to use that knowledge in your role as a leader. If someone knows how to do something, but life has got in the way and layered them with stresses, strains, stuff, then that's where you might use coaching techniques.